Hi guys, let the world around you dissolve until there is only the sound of my voice and the rhythm of your own breath. We are going on a journey, traveling back across the vast, shimmering dunes of time back to the very beginning, where the air was sweet with the scent of wild grasses and the sun was a constant, golden companion, tens of thousands of years ago. In the heart of Africa, the world was a canvas of vibrant intensity. Our ancestors lived in a landscape of endless horizons, where the earth was a rich ochre red and the sky a blue so deep it felt infinite. In this cradle of humanity, the sun was not just a light in the sky. It was a powerful, life-giving force that dictated the rhythm of every day. These early humans were beautifully adapted to this intensity. Their skin was deep and dark, a shimmering ebony or a rich, velvety mahogany. This was nature's brilliant designer, high concentration of melanin that acted as a natural shield. This melanin was a protective embrace, absorbing the fierce ultraviolet rays of the equatorial sun, guarding the precious nutrients within their bodies, and allowing them to thrive under the midday glare. Imagine them now, see the sunlight glinting off their shoulders as they move through the tall, amber grasses. There is a profound sense of belonging here. They are a part of this earth, as sturdy as the baobab trees and as fluid as the river currents. The morning begins with a soft, peach-colored dawn. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming acacia. You can hear the distant low rumble of an elephant herd and the rhythmic chirping of insects waking to the light. Inside a small cluster of shelters made of woven branches and skins, a family begins to stir. There is no rush, only the slow, purposeful movement of a life lived in harmony with the land. A mother presses her hand against the cool ground, feeling the vibration of the waking world. Her skin is dark and smooth, perfectly suited to the heat that will soon descend. As the sun climbs higher, the warmth begins to spread like a thick, golden honey over the landscape. The group prepares for the day's journey. There is a quiet intimacy in their interactions, soft touch on a shoulder, a shared glance, the melodic hum of a song passed down through generations. The hunters move with a silent, feline grace. They track the movement of the gazelle across the savannah, their bodies glistening with a thin sheen of sweat that cools them in the dry heat. They are endurance runners, capable of moving for miles under the sun because their dark skin protects them from the harsh radiation that would otherwise exhaust them nearby. The gatherers move through the scrubland. Their fingers are nimble, identifying the right tubers, the sweetest berries, and the medicinal herbs hidden in the shade of the rocks. They talk in low, soothing tones, teaching the children how to read the language of the leaves. Listen to the wind, an elder might whisper, her voice like the rustle of dry grass. It tells you where the water hides. Look at the shadows. They tell you when it is time to seek the shade. In the heat of the afternoon, the world slows to a crawl. The group gathers under the wide canopy of a massive fig tree. The shade is a physical relief, a cool blue sanctuary amidst the shimmering heat waves of the plains. Here they rest. They share water from ostrich eggshells, the liquid cool and sweet. The children play quietly in the dust, their laughter a bright, silver sound in the stillness. This is a time of storytelling, of weaving the fabric of their shared history through words and gestures. Under the watchful, protective eye of the sun, as the generations passed, a restlessness began to stir, a hurried urge, but a slow, drifting curiosity. Perhaps the rains became less frequent, or perhaps the herds moved further north, following the greening of the earth. Slowly, tiny bands of humans began to edge away from the familiar heat of the equator. They moved toward the edges of the continent and eventually beyond, crossing land bridges that no longer exist. As they traveled, the world began to change. The sun, once a fierce lion directly overhead, began to sit lower in the sky. The days grew shorter in the winter months, and the light became softer, filtered through thicker clouds and heavier mists. This was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift at first, but for the human body, it was a profound transformation of environment. In the north, the very thing that had protected them, their deep, dark melanin, began to pose a new challenge. The sun's rays were no longer strong enough to penetrate the dense pigment to trigger the production of vitamin D, a nutrient essential for strong bones and a healthy heart. The earth began to ask something different of its children. It required a new kind of balance. Imagine a family living on the edge of a great, forested valley in a cooler climate. The air here is crisp, smelling of pine needles and cold stone. The sun is a pale lemon yellow, casting long, dramatic shadows across the mossy ground. The children born here are subtly different from their ancestors. In these lower light environments, those with slightly less melanin in their skin had a tiny, quiet advantage. Their lighter skin allowed the weaker sunlight to penetrate, just enough to create the vitamin D they needed to stay strong and healthy. It wasn't a sudden change. It was a slow, beautiful unfolding. Over hundreds of generations, the palette of human skin began to expand. Like a painter mixing colors on a stone, nature began to swirl in shades of bronze, gold, beige, and ivory. Each shade was a perfect response to a specific landscape map of where a people had traveled and how they had survived. The transition was a silent symphony of adaptation. As these ancient travelers moved into the heart of Eurasia, they encountered the great ice. The world turned white and silver. The wind howled through mountain passes, carrying the scent of snow and ancient glaciers. Survival now meant more than just endurance. It meant innovation. They learned to stitch heavy furs together using bone needles, creating a second skin to protect them from the biting cold. They mastered the fire, turning the hearth into the heart of their world. In the long, dim winters, where the sun barely rose above the horizon, the skin of these humans continued to lighten. It became a mirror to the landscape pale, as the winter sky, translucent enough to catch every stray beam of light. Their bodies became master collectors of the sun's fleeting energy, yet, inside, they remained the same. They still shared the same stories around the fire. They still felt the same surge of love for their children. They still looked up at the stars, the same stars. Their ancestors had watched in the warm African night and felt a sense of wonder. The physical change was merely a testament to their resilience. It was the story of a species that refused to be limited by geography. It was the story of how we, as a human family, learned to live in every corner of this beautiful, turning globe. The fire in the hearth flickers, casting dancing shadows against the walls of the cave. Outside, the snow falls silently, blanketing the world in a deep, hushing peace. The journey of the human skin is not just a biological fact. It is a poem of migration, written in the very cells of our being. We have seen how the sun shaped us in the tall grasses of the savannah, and how the mist refined us in the northern forests. But the world is vast, and the story of our movement is far from over. As the ice begins to recede in the great cycles of the earth, new pathways will open. Humans will cross vast tundras, navigate treacherous seas, and find themselves in lands of eternal twilight and lands of shimmering ice. They will encounter new animals, forge new tools, and continue to change in ways they cannot yet imagine. As the fire in our ancient hearth crackles and softens into a steady, rhythmic glow, let your mind drift further north. We leave the golden warmth of the ancestral plains behind, following the gentle pull of the horizon. The air begins to change. It loses its heavy, humid weight and takes on a sharp, crystalline clarity. We are entering the great north, a land of emerald forests and silver rivers, where the sun plays a different game of hide and seek with the clouds. Imagine a small band of travelers cresting a high mountain pass. They are descendants of those who first crossed the land bridges, carrying with them the memories of the sun in their very marrow. But here, the world is draped in shades of deep moss, green, and slate grey. The first thing you notice is the silence. It is not the empty silence of a void, but a heavy, expectant quiet, muffled by the thick carpet of pine needles underfoot. The scent of resin and damp earth rises to meet you. As you breathe in, the air feels thin and cool, tingling in your chest like a sip of mountain water. Among the travelers is a young man named Elan. His skin is still the color of polished tick, a legacy of his grandfathers. He looks up at the sky, searching for the fierce, blinding disk of the African sun, but finds only a pale, watery orb veiled in mist. The light here doesn't burn. It is a soft, diffused glow that casts long, violet shadows even at midday. For Elan and his kin, this change in light is more than just a visual shift. Inside their bodies, a quiet crisis is unfolding. The melanin that once served as a suit of armor against the equatorial heat is now a barrier, a wall that reflects the precious, thinning ultraviolet rays, without enough of these rays reaching the deeper layers of the skin. The body struggles to create vitamin D, the sunshine hormone, that knits bones together and keeps the spirit resilient. One evening, as the group huddles near the entrance of a limestone cave, the sky turns a heavy, bruised purple. The wind begins to whistle through the crags of the mountains, a lonely, haunting sound. And then, something miraculous happens. Small, white feathers begin to drift from the sky. The children reach out their hands, their dark fingers catching the flakes. They watch in wonder as the white specks vanish into drops of water against their warm skin. This is the first snowy blanket of silence falling over the world. Within the cave, the family gathers for warmth. They have learned the art of the needle, using bone slivers to pierce the thick hides of the reindeer they hunted in the valley. They wrap themselves in layers of fur, the scent of smoke and animal musk filling the small, protected space. There is a deep, primal intimacy here. A father hums a low melody while softening a piece of leather with his teeth. A grandmother tells a story of the great fire in the sky that used to stay for hours. As the weeks turn into months, the long dark sets in. The sun barely grazes the horizon before dipping back into the earth. In this environment, survival is a slow, patient endurance. Nature is a patient weaver. It does not change a person in a lifetime. It changes a people over the heartbeat of millennia. Within Elan's tribe, a child is born. Her name is Miri. Unlike her father, Miri's skin is a shade lighter, not yet pale, but the color of warm sand or burnished copper. This subtle shift is a gift from the earth, because her skin has slightly less melanin. It acts like a more sensitive sail, catching even the weakest, most slanted rays of the winter sun. As Miri grows, she is strong. Her legs are sturdy, her gait sure-footed on the icy slopes. Her body is more efficient at turning that pale, northern light into the strength she needs to survive. She survives the lean winters when others grow weak. When she has children of her own, the instruction manual within her cells, the DNA carries this message of adaptation forward. To live here, the cells whisper, you must let the light in. You must become a mirror to the sky. Generation after generation, the palette continues to shift. The deep mahogany fades to bronze. The bronze softens into gold. The gold eventually cools into the fair, translucent tones of the northern reaches. This isn't a loss of beauty, but an evolution of it, a testament to the human body's incredible desire to persist, to breathe, and to thrive wherever it finds itself. Imagine the scene 1,000 years later. A village of low, circular huts made of mammoth bone and sod sits nestled in a river valley. The people here are different in hue, but identical in heart. The morning routine is a dance of cooperation. You can hear the rhythmic thwack-thwack of stone axes shaping wood. A young woman walks toward the river, her skin now as pale as the morning mist, allowing her to absorb the meager UV rays of the early spring. She kneels by the water, which is cold enough to ache, and watches a salmon leap against the current dot. The sensory details of this life are vivid and grounding to the touch. The rough texture of dried meat, the surprising softness of a rabbit fur lining, the biting sting of the wind against your cheeks, the sound, the crackle of a cedar log in the fire, the distant howl of a wolf pack echoing off the canyon walls, the soft, rhythmic breathing of your kin as you sleep huddled together for warmth, the sight, the transition of the forest from the skeletal white of winter to the explosion of neon green in the spring, the way the stars seem larger and brighter in the thin, cold air. These humans are not just surviving, they are beginning to belong. They are learning which mosses heal a wound and which fungi bring vivid dreams. They are carving small figures of women and animals out of ivory, pouring their hopes and fears into the stone. They are the first Europeans, a branch of the human family tree reaching out into the frost, their very skin changing to match the moonlight. As these groups moved deeper into the valleys of the Alps, the Pyrenees, and the vast plains of the east, they became separated by geography. The high peaks and the dense, dark forests acted as walls. In this isolation, the genetic changes became more pronounced. Without the constant mixing of populations from the south, the traits for lighter skin, as well as different eye and hair colors, began to stabilize within these small, hardy communities. Each valley became a laboratory of evolution. One group might develop a specific shade of blue in their eyes to better navigate the glare of the snow. Another might find their hair turning the color of straw or autumn leaves. They were becoming the people of the mist, a specialized lineage carved by the ice and the long winters. But even as their outward appearance diverged, the thread that connected them back to the sun-drenched plains of Africa remained unbroken. They still carried the same capacity for language, the same hunger for connection, and the same dreams that visited their ancestors under the baobab trees. The long migration is slowing. The wandering bands are finding places where the earth is kind valleys, where the soil is rich, and the rivers are full of life. They are beginning to stay. They are building the first permanent dwellings, taming the fire not just for a night, but for a lifetime. The stage is now set. The humans have adapted to the cold. They have turned the sun's absence into a new kind of strength. They have become a mosaic of colors, a living map of the Earth's latitudes. But as they settle, a new challenge arises. They are no longer just hunters following the herds. They are becoming keepers of the land. They are beginning to notice the patterns of the seeds and the cycles of the moon with a new, intense focus. The fire has burned down to a deep, pulsing crimson. Outside the skin-covered window of our dwelling, the wind has softened to a whisper, carrying the scent of damp earth and the promise of green things. We have traveled far, from the burning sands to the biting frost, but now the rhythm of our story changes. It becomes slower, rooted in the soil, echoing the steady heartbeat of the turning seasons. Imagine a wide, fertile valley cradled between two silver rivers. The morning mist clings to the ground like a fleece, and as the sun, now a gentle, golden orb, crests the hills, it illuminates fields of wild grasses that sway in unison. This is no longer just a place to pass through. This is home. Our ancestors have laid down their heavy traveling packs. They have discovered a secret hidden within the earth, the seed. A woman named Ada kneels in the soft, dark loam. Her skin is the color of light honey, a perfect balance for this temperate latitude. She runs her fingers through the dirt, feeling its cool moisture. To her, the soil is not just mud. It is a living thing, a provider. She presses a grain of wheat into a shallow furrow, covering it with a practiced, tender motion. The sensory world of the first farmers is rich and grounded. There is the rhythmic shuk-shuk of flint sickles cutting through dry stalks. There is the earthy, sweet aroma of crushed grain being ground between two heavy stones. And there is the low, contented lowing of the first domesticated cattle, their warmth radiating in the cool evening air as they are led into their pens. Life has become a series of patient cycles. The urgency of the hunt has been replaced by the discipline of the harvest. As humans settled into this agricultural life, a new and subtle transformation began, one that would leave a permanent mark on the hue of their skin. In the days of the great migrations, our ancestors were hunters and fishers. They ate the dark, oily flesh of the salmon and the nutrient-rich livers of the reindeer. These foods were natural storehouses of vitamin D, supplementing what the pale northern sun could not provide. But as Ada and her kin began to rely more on the grains they grew, wheat, barley, and rye, their diet changed. Grains are a wonderful source of energy, but they lack the vitamin D, found in the wild catch of the forest and sea. This shift in diet placed a new pressure on the human body to keep their bones strong and their immune systems resilient. The people of the inland valleys needed to become even more efficient at capturing sunlight in the quiet laboratory of the womb. Nature made its adjustments. Within Ada's village, children were born with skin that was increasingly fair. This was not a random change, but a brilliant biological necessity. Lighter skin allowed the meager UV rays of the northern spring and autumn to penetrate deeper, acting as a natural refinery to produce the sunshine vitamin that their new, grain-based diet could no longer provide. The skin became a translucent veil, a mirror to the overcast skies. In the winter, when the sun was a mere ghost, this fair skin worked tirelessly, capturing every stray photon to keep the body whole. It was a beautiful, invisible alchemy, turning light into life. Evening falls over the settlement. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke and roasting leeks. Inside a sturdy hut made of sun-dried brick and timber, a family gathers around a low table. There is a grandfather here, his face a map of deep lines, his skin a bit darker than his grandchildren's, reminder of the days when his tribe moved more often to the south. He watches the youngest child, a boy with skin as pale as a river pebble, and eyes the color of the summer sky. The grandfather reaches out, his hand rough from years of tilling, and touches the boy's hair. There is no fear of their differences, only a quiet, unspoken understanding that they are all part of the same long thread. The earth gives us the grain, the old man whispers, his voice like the rustle of autumn leaves. But the sun gives us our strength. We must learn to drink the light, even when the clouds are heavy. They share a meal of thick porridge and goat's milk. The intimacy is profound. They are no longer small, isolated bands hiding in caves. They are a community. They share the labor, the grain stores, and the stories of the stars. They have learned that by staying in one place, they can build something that lasts longer than a single lifetime. As the centuries drifted by like clouds across the valley, the world began to shrink. The settlements grew, and with them came the desire to see what lay beyond the next ridge. Trade routes began to stretch across the continent like a delicate web. A trader from the sun-drenched shores of the Mediterranean might arrive in Ada's valley, carrying obsidian or seashells. His skin would be a deep, toasted bronze, his eyes dark and piercing. He would exchange his goods for the fine wool and hardy grains of the north. Sometimes these traders stayed. They married into the local families, and their children became a beautiful blend of latitudes. This was the gene mixing, the great weaving of the human tapestry. The diversity we see today, the infinite variations of skin, hair, and eye color began to flourish in these crossroads of civilization. A child might inherit the fair skin of the north, but the dark, curly hair of the south. Another might have the amber eyes of a mountain dweller and the tall, slender frame of a plains hunter. This genetic diversity was a hidden strength. It meant that the human family was becoming more adaptable, more resilient, and more vibrant. Each person was a living history book, carrying the legacy of 1,000 different journeys in their blood. The moon rises over the quiet fields. The wheat, nearly ready for harvest, shimmers like a sea of silver under the lunar light. Survival is still a challenge, but it is a challenge met with wisdom and tools. The humans have learned to read the clouds to predict the rain. They have learned to store the summer's bounty against the winter's bite. They have become the sentinels of the seasons. They reflect on their journey, not in the way we do, with maps and dates, but through the feeling of the sun on their backs and the strength in their limbs. They know they are different from their ancestors who lived in the always warm lands. Yet they feel the same pull toward the fire, the same need for a mother's embrace, the same wonder at the rising moon. The skin that covers them is a testament to their endurance. Whether it is the color of a dark espresso, a golden apricot, or a pale lily, it is a masterpiece of evolution. It is the perfect suit of armor for the specific corner of the world they call home. As the night deepens, the settlement sleeps. The only sound is the gentle flow of the river and the occasional stir of a sleeping animal. The foundations have been laid. These early farmers have mastered the land and the light. But as their societies grow more complex, a new kind of evolution is beginning. They are no longer just changing physically. They are changing culturally. They are beginning to build great stone circles to track the movements of the sun. They are developing languages that can describe abstract thoughts in our lineage and the divine. They are forming the first kingdoms and the first codes of law. The migration of the body is slowing, but the migration of the mind is just beginning. The stage is set for the rise of the great European cultures, where the interplay of genetics, environment, and tradition will create a world of unprecedented complexity. The hearth fire has settled into a soft, pulsing amber, casting long, gentle shadows that dance upon the timber walls. The world outside is hushed, wrapped in the velvet embrace of a summer twilight. We have watched the seeds take root and the first houses rise from the earth. Now, let us drift further into the story, into a time when the paths between villages became well-worn trails, and the isolated families of the north began to reach out their hands to one another. Imagine a morning in late spring. The air is cool and fragrant, smelling of crushed wild mint and the sweet damp rising from the riverbanks. In a small settlement nestled in a valley of what we now call Central Europe, the day begins not with the urgency of survival, but with the excitement of connection. Today is the day of the great exchange. From the high, jagged peaks of the mountains to the south, a group of travelers appears. They move with a steady, rhythmic gait, their packs filled with precious salt and translucent amber. Their skin is a deep, weathered bronze, etched with fine lines from a lifetime spent under a more direct sun. As they descend into the valley, they are met by the local villagers, whose skin is the color of pale cream or polished bone shade perfected over thousands of years to drink in the fleeting northern light. There is no tension in this meeting, only a slow, curious grace. They greet each other with gestures of peace, palms upturned, eyes meeting with a soft, steady gaze. They speak in a melodic mix of dialects, the sounds rising and falling like the water over the river stones. As the sun climbs to its zenith, the village center transforms into a tapestry of color and sound. Rugs woven from coarse sheep's wool are spread upon the grass. You can hear the rhythmic clink-clink of bronze tools being polished and the soft lowing of oxen tethered nearby. The midday meal is a symphony of the senses. Large ceramic pots, cooled in the shadows of the huts, are brought out, filled with a rich stew of barley, wild leeks, and tender venison. The taste, the salt from the mountains transforms the simple grain into something savory and deep. There is the tartness of wild crabapples and the lingering sweetness of honeycomb, gathered from a hollow log. The touch. Feel the texture of the various garments. There is the scratchy, honest weight of linen made from flax, and the buttery softness of a deerskin tunic tanned with oak bark. The sound, the air, is filled with the laughter of children who, regardless of the shade of their skin or the color of their eyes, play the same games in the dirt. You hear the rhythmic thrum of a bone flute playing a melody that feels as old as the mountains themselves. In this communal space, the boundaries of biology begin to soften and blur. A young woman from the valley, her skin as fair as the morning mist, sits beside a traveler whose ancestors came from the sun-drenched coasts of the Great Sea. They share a bowl of berries, their fingers occasionally brushing. In this small, human moment, the future of the species is being rewritten. Nature, in her infinite patience, watches these interactions with a quiet smile. When these two people, the daughter of the North and the son of the South, form a bond, they are doing more than just sharing a life. They are mixing two distinct maps of survival. Their children will be a bridge. Some may inherit the father's ability to tan deeply in the summer, protecting them from the glare of the river. Others may inherit the mother's pale, translucent skin, ensuring they stay strong during the long, grey winters. When the sun is a rare visitor, this is the beauty of the human mosaic. It is not a story of one color replacing another, but of a constant, fluid blending. Over generations, these seasonal gatherings and trade routes acted as great looms, weaving the genetics of different populations together. The result was a stunning spectrum of diversity, a range of skin tones that allowed humans to thrive in the shadowed forests, the sun-baked coasts, and the snowy plains alike, inside the body of a single child. The history of 10,000 years of migration is stored. The melanin levels adjust, the vitamin D receptors find their balance, and the human form remains resilient, no matter where the trail leads, as the sun begins to dip behind the western ridges, painting the sky in strokes of violet and gold. The community gathers around a massive central bonfire. The heat from the flames is a physical presence, a warm weight against the cooling evening air. An elder stands, her silver hair catching the firelight. She's a keeper of memories, her skin a parchment of history. She tells the story of the great wandering, of how their ancestors followed the tracks of the elk across the ice, and how they learned to talk to the spirits of the grain. "We are the children of the light and the children of the shadow," she says, her voice a low, rhythmic croon. "Our skin is a gift from the earth, a coat that changes with the seasons and the lands we walk. Never forget that we are one family, joined by the same fire and the same stars." The children listen, their heads nodding as sleep begins to pull at their eyelids. They feel safe in the circle of the community. They understand, in a way that goes deeper than words, that their differences are their strength tools that allow them to belong to the world in all its varied climates. Life in these early towns followed the slow, majestic breath of the earth. In the autumn, the focus turned to the harvest. The air turned crisp, smelling of fallen leaves and woods. The community worked as one, stripping the golden husks from the corn and drying the meat for the lean months. The physical labor kept them warm, and the shared goal kept them united. In the winter, the world turned inward. The villages were often cut off by deep snows, turning each settlement into a cozy island of warmth. This was the time for crafts, carving intricate designs into bone needles, weaving intricate patterns into belts, and teaching the younger generation the lore of the plants. The low UV levels of these months were managed by the pale skin of the locals, while the stored fats and dried fish provided the necessary nutrients to see them through to the spring. In the spring, the world exploded in a riot of green. The rivers, swollen with snowmelt, roared through the valleys. The first flowers, snowdrops and crocosies pushed through the thawing earth. This was a time of renewal and new migrations. Younger members of the tribe would set out to find new lands, carrying the mixed heritage of their parents into even more distant corners of the continent. As the generations passed, these small towns grew. They developed complex social structures, where priests studied the movements of the planets and craftsmen perfected the art of the forge. They built monuments of stone that aligned with the solstices, physical prayers to the sun that had shaped their very being. The evolution of their skin had reached a point of stable balance. In the north, the fair tones remained a biological necessity for the low-light environment. Along the Mediterranean, the olive and bronze tones persisted, a shield against the intense coastal sun. And in the middle, a vast, beautiful range of intermediate shades existed, reflecting the constant movement and mixing of people along the trade routes. The physical adaptation was largely complete, but the cultural adaptation was just beginning to accelerate. They were no longer just reacting to the environment, they were shaping it. They were building roads, clearing forests, and creating a world that would eventually become the Europe of history. The fire has now crumbled into glowing coals, and the village is silent. The only sound is the hoot of a distant owl, and the soft rustle of the wind in the thatch dot. The story of our skin is a story of love, survival, and an incredible openness to the world. It is the story of how we let the sun and the shade write their poetry upon our bodies. But even as these early societies settled, the horizon continued to beckon. To the west lay the vast unknown ocean, to the east the endless steppes, and to the north the mystery of the midnight sun. The human spirit, always restless, always curious, was preparing for the next great leap that would take them across the seas and into the very heart of the unknown. The embers of our fire are now a soft, pulsing orange, like the distant heart of a star. The air in our dwelling is thick with the scent of dried herbs and the comforting musk of heavy furs. As you settle deeper into your blankets, let your mind drift even further north, past the fertile river valleys, past the temperate forests, until the trees begin to thin and the earth is iron-bound by frost. We are entering the realm of the great winter, a land where the sun is a fleeting visitor and the moon is a constant. Silver Guardian, imagine a world where the horizon is a jagged line of white against a sky of deep, bruised indigo. Here, the transition from day to night is not a sharp line, but a long, lingering bruise of violet. This is the far north of Europe. Tens of thousands of years ago, a small family group, the people of the reindeer, is making its winter camp in the lee of a massive granite cliff. The wind howls across the tundra, a lonely, predatory sound. But inside their shelter of mammoth tusks and thick, layered hides, there is a defiant warmth. Among them is a young woman named Sora. Her skin is as pale as the underside of a birch leaf, almost translucent in the firelight. This is not a mark of weakness, but a masterpiece of survival. In this land, where the sun barely skims the horizon for months at a time, Sora's skin is a finely tuned instrument. It is designed to catch the rarest, most scattered photons of ultraviolet light, turning that meager energy into the vitamin D her bones and heart require to stay strong. Sora watches her younger brother, a boy with hair the color of sun-bleached grass. He is playing with a set of carved bone figures, his movements fluid and energetic. In the generations before them, when their ancestors first stepped into this cold, many children grew weak, their legs bowing under the weight of their bodies because the dark skin of the south could not harvest enough light. But Sora and her brother are the children of a new era, the people of the pale sun. Their bodies have whispered back to the environment, changing their hue to match the winter sky. To live here is to live in a world of intense, focused sensations. There is no room for the wasted energy of the tropics. Every movement is purposeful. Every sound carries a meaning. The touch of the cold. When you step outside the shelter, the cold is not just a temperature. It is a physical weight. It nips at the small patch of skin around your eyes, the only part of you not encased in the soft, insulating warmth of reindeer fur. You feel the crunch of dry snow, so cold it doesn't melt, but shatters like glass beneath your boots. The sound of survival. There is the rhythmic thump-thump of a stone scraper as a mother prepares a fresh hide, removing every bit of fat to ensure the leather remains supple. There is the low, guttering hiss of the seal-fat lamp, a tiny sun that keeps the darkness at bay. The taste of the deep dinner is a communal affair. They share the dark, rich meat of a seal caught through a breathing hole in the ice, and the precious, oily liver of a cold water fish. These foods are their lifeline, nature's concentrated medicine, providing the fats and nutrients that the frozen earth cannot grow. There is a profound intimacy in this life, because the world outside is so vast and unforgiving. the world inside the shelter is incredibly close. You feel the warmth of your kin's breath, the steady rhythm of their hearts. You learn to read the slight tension in a shoulder or the soft curve of a smile by the dim light of the hearth. As the months of the long dark stretch on, the family enters a state of quiet reflection. They are not merely waiting for the spring. They are honoring the winter. One evening, the elder of the group, a man whose skin is etched with the white scars of many hunts, holds a piece of translucent amber up to the fire. "Look," he whispers, his voice a low vibration in the small space. "The sun is hidden in the stone, just as the sun is hidden in our skin. We do not need the great fire in the sky to burn us. We have learned to carry the light inside ourselves. This is the essence of natural selection, of violent struggle, but a quiet, persistent favoring of those who fit the landscape. In these small, isolated bands, the children who were born with slightly less melanin thrived. They grew taller, they ran faster, and they lived long enough to have children of their own. The lighter skin trait was a key that unlocked the North. It allowed humans to move beyond the reach of the forest and into the high Arctic, following the great migrations of the herds. They became the ghosts of the tundra, nearly invisible against the snow, their bodies humming with the energy they harvested from the pale, slanting rays of the northern sun. As the earth tilts back toward the light, the world undergoes a violent, beautiful transformation. The big melt begins. The silence of winter is broken by the thunderous crack of river ice breaking apart. The air, once brittle and dry, becomes heavy with the scent of damp moss and ancient thawing earth. The family prepares to move. They are no longer stationary. They are part of the pulse of the planet. They follow the reindeer herds as they move north toward their calving grounds. This is a time of incredible labor and incredible bounty. They gather the first green shoots of willow and the tart, vitamin-rich berries that emerge from the retreating snow. Sora feels the sun on her Pfizer weak. Watery warmth that would feel like nothing to an inhabitant of the equator, but to her it is a roar of life. Her skin, pale and hungry, drinks it in. Within her, the alchemy of vitamin D production accelerates, fueling her muscles for the long treks across the shifting bogs. This seasonal migration is where the first social technologies began to form. These northern bands would occasionally meet other groups at traditional fishing spots or mountain passes. There, they would trade more than just stone tools or furs. They traded stories, songs, and lineages. A young man from a coastal tribe, whose people lived primarily on the silver of the sea fish, might join Sora's group. His skin might be a different shade, perhaps a bit more sallow or olive, reflecting a diet richer in vitamins from the water. Their union would create a new variation, a child who was even better equipped to handle the unique challenges of the northern interior. As the millennia rolled on, the humans of the North began to change the landscape to suit them, rather than just reacting to it. They began to understand the geometry of the stars and the timing of the solstices with a precision born of necessity. They began to build more permanent structures, not just shelters, but monuments. They dragged massive stones across the tundra to mark the places where the sun would return on the shortest day of the year. These were the first cathedrals of light, physical manifestations of their relationship with the sun. The struggle for vitamin D and survival had turned them into observers, mathematicians, and engineers. They had to know exactly when the light would return, exactly where the herds would be, and exactly how to store the summer's warmth in the form of grain, dried meat, and thick textiles. the sensory world was expanding. The sound of the stone chisel against granite, the smell of the first large-scale fermentations of honey and grain, the sight of vast organized communities working together to raise a monolith. They were no longer just survivors. They were creators. The story of the northern skin is a story of a boundary being pushed to its limit. Nature had lightened the skin as much as it could to compensate for the darkness. But the humans added their own layers, clothing, shelter, and controlled fire. This combination of biological adaptation and technological innovation allowed the European populations to explode in number. As the ice finally retreated for the last time in this cycle, these hardy, pale-skinned innovators began to push back south and west, meeting the darker-skinned farmers of the Mediterranean and the bronze-skinned traders of the East. The continent became a swirling cauldron of diversity. The people of the North brought their resilience and their light-harvesting biology. The people of the South brought their agricultural wisdom and their sun-shielding melanin. As you drift off to sleep, imagine these ancient travelers. See them not as distant ancestors, but as the very reason you are here today. Their perseverance in the face of the long dark, their body's incredible ability to change and adapt, and their quiet, steady love for one another are all woven into the fabric of your own being. The world is quiet now. The snow is falling softly over the ancient valleys, and the hearth fire has finally faded to grey ash. But the light they captured, the light of the sun and the light of human spirit, is never truly gone. It is carried forward, generation after generation, into a future they could only dream of. The era of the wandering hunter is ending. The era of the great European societies of kings, philosophers, and explorers is about to begin. The map of the world is being drawn, one footstep at a time. The embers of our fire have grown small and steady, like the rhythmic pulsing of a heart at rest. The air around us is still, the heavy furs of our bed providing a sanctuary of warmth. We have watched the hunters move through the frost and the first farmers press seeds into the spring thaw earth. Now let the story drift forward into a time when the world began to hum with a new sound, the clear, melodic ring of metal upon stone and the low, steady rumble of wooden wheels on forest paths. Imagine a village nestled in a wide, emerald valley where the mountains meet the plains. The morning does not wake to the silence of the wilderness, but to a symphony of industry at the edge of the settlement. A young man named Kale stands before a clay furnace. The air here is different. It smells of charcoal, scorched earth, and the sharp, metallic temps of heated copper. Kale's skin is a soft, sun-kissed ochre, a hue that speaks of ancestors from the southern coasts. Yet his eyes are the pale, startling blue of the northern ice. He is a child of the crossroads, a living bridge between the lands of the sun and the lands of the mist. Listen to the rhythm of his labor. There is the steady whoosh-whoosh of the leather bellows, feeding the fire until the coals glow with a white-hot intensity. There is the hiss of molten metal being poured into a stone mold, a sound like 1,000 tiny serpents. And then, the most beautiful sound of all, the rhythmic tink-tink of a small hammer, shaping the cooling blade. Kale runs his thumb over the edge of a finished bronze dagger. The texture is cold and smooth, far different from the flaked grain of the flint tools his grandfather once used. This metal is a miracle. It can be melted, reshaped, and sharpened until it shines like a captured sunbeam. In this tool, and the thousands like it being traded across the continent, lies the seed of a new era. As Kale works, the village around him breathes with the activity of a communal soul. Life is no longer a solitary struggle against the elements. It is a complex tapestry of interdependence in the center of the village. Women sit in the dappled shade of a great oak, their fingers dancing across the warp and weft of upright looms. The sound, the rhythmic thwack of the wooden batten tightening the weave. The low melodic hum of a working song, a melody that keeps the hands in time. The touch, feel the transition of the fibers. The rough, honest prickle of raw wool. The cooling smoothness of linen dyed with the blue of the woad plant. The weight of a heavy cloak designed to repel the sudden, silver rains of the valley. The sight, the vibrant colors, reds from madder root, yellows from weld, and deep forest greens. These colors are not just decoration. They are signatures of the land, telling a story of the plants that grow in this specific soil. Nearby, children lead a team of oxen. The animals are massive and slow, their breath a warm mist in the cool morning air. They pull a heavy wooden sledge laden with grain, their hooves making a rhythmic thud-thud on the packed earth. This is the heartbeat of the new world, a steady, purposeful movement that tames the landscape as the sun reaches its peak. A group of travelers arrives from the eastern steppes. They are different from the valley folk. Their skin is a deep, weathered bronze, toughened by the winds of the open plains. They bring horses magnificent, powerful creatures that move with a grace the villagers have never seen. When these groups meet, there is a feast. They sit around long wooden tables, sharing bread made from the valley's wheat and cheese made from the travelers. Herds dot in these moments of shared meals and stories. The biology of the human family continues its quiet, miraculous work. When a traveler decides to stay, enamored by the green valleys and the song of the forge, he brings with him a different genetic heritage. Over generations, the skin tones of the village become even more varied. In the northern reaches, the need for vitamin D synthesis still favors the pale, light-drinking skin that we explored before. But along the trade routes, where mobility is high and diets are more varied, a new kind of genetic flexibility emerges. Some individuals inherit the ability to tan deeply in the summer, protecting them as they labor in the open fields, while retaining the capacity to become pale in the winter to capture the meager light. This adaptive tanning is a brilliant compromiser way for the body to be a citizen of many climates at once. The diversity we see in the village, the gold, the bronze, the ivory, and the copper is a testament to human progress. It is the result of thousands of years of saying yes to the stranger, of choosing connection over isolation as evening falls. The village elders gather in a circle near the river. They speak of the new turning stone, the wheel. It is a simple thing, a circle of wood bound with bronze, yet it changes everything. Distances that once took days now take hours. The world is shrinking. Knowledge that was once trapped in a single valley now flows like water. The secret of the forge travels from the mountains to the sea. The secret of the sail travels from the coast to the interior. One elder, her skin the color of aged parchment and her eyes the deep green of the forest, looks at the young apprentices. "We are no longer just the people who follow the elk," she says softly, her voice carrying over the sound of the flowing river. "We are the people who shape the world. But remember, the metal is only as strong as the hand that holds it, and the hand is only as strong as the heart that beats within. We change our tools, and our tools change us. We change our lands, and our lands change our skin. But the spirit remains the same." The reflective silence that follows is filled with the sounds of the night the chirping of crickets, the rustle of the wind in the wheat, the distant call of a heron. There is a sense of profound continuity. These humans are the bridge between the ancient, wild past and the structured, complex future. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the interior of a village home at night. The fire is a low, comforting glow. A mother sits on a bench of hewn cedar, brushing her daughter's hair. The girl's skin is a soft, luminous cream, reflecting the light-gathering biology of her northern ancestors, but her hair is dark and thick, a gift from her father's southern lineage. The mother tells a story of the Golden Age, not of gold metal, but of the golden sun. She speaks of how their ancestors learned to talk to the animals, and how they found the first fire. The sensory details here are the most soothing of all. The warmth, the radiant heat from the stone hearth, seeping into your bones. The scent, the smell of lavender drying in the rafters, and the faint, sweet aroma of baking bread. The feeling, the absolute security of being part of a community. You are not alone in the dark. You are surrounded by walls you built, protected by laws you agreed upon, and nourished by a land you have learned to love. Survival is no longer a frantic escape from hunger. It is a dignified, rhythmic dance with the seasons. The people have learned to store the summer in jars of honey and bins of grain. They have learned to store the sun in their skin and the history of their people in their songs. The night deepens, and the village sleeps. The only light comes from the moon, which reflects off the polished bronze tools leaning against the workshop walls. The story of the human skin has reached a plateau of incredible diversity and resilience. Through migration, trade, and the mixing of genes, the European population has become a mosaic of adaptation. They are ready for the challenges of the coming ages. But the world does not stand still. To the south, the first great city-states are beginning to rise. To the west, the ships are growing larger, ready to challenge the horizon. The technologies of the forge and the wheel are about to create empires. The small, intimate villages are the seeds of something much larger. The human family is about to step into the light of written history, where their stories will be carved in stone and written on vellum. The physical journey of skin adaptation will continue, but it will soon be joined by the even faster journey of cultural evolution. As you fall into a deep, restful sleep, know that you carry this entire history within you. Every shade of your skin, every curve of your features is a souvenir from this long, magnificent journey through the light and the shadow. The fire in our hearth has burned down to a gentle, rhythmic pulse, much like the slow, steady breath of the earth itself. As you settle into the soft embrace of your blankets, let the sounds of the modern world fade away. Imagine, instead, the vast and varied landscape of our ancient Homer world, shaped not by walls and roads, but by the colossal forces of wind, water, and stone. We are traveling to a time when the geography of the land was the primary architect of the human body. It was a long, slow conversation between the skin and the sky, a dialogue written in the language of mountains, rivers, and the ever-shifting light. Close your eyes and imagine the great mountains. They rise like the jagged teeth of the earth, their peaks perpetually draped in a mantle of silver-white snow. The air here is thin and sharp, carrying the scent of cold flint and frozen pine. In the high valleys, a small community has made its home. Their lives are dictated by the verticality of the world. In the summer, they follow the melting snow upward, guiding their flocks to alpine meadows that burst into a brief, violent riot of purple and gold wildflowers. In the winter, they retreat to the deep, sheltered canyons where the wind loses its bite. Life in the heights required a unique kind of resilience. Because the air is thinner, the sun's rays, though often cold, carry a different kind of intensity. The ultraviolet radiation at these altitudes is surprisingly strong, even when the air is freezing. Consider a young woman named Elara, whose family has lived among these peaks for generations. Her skin is a deep, burnished bronze, a natural armor against the high-altitude glare that reflects off the snow. This is the wisdom of geography, even in a cold climate. The presence of thin air and reflective ice can favor a darker pigment to protect the body's delicate chemistry. The sensory world of the mountain dweller is one of extremes. The sound, the roar of a hidden waterfall echoing off granite walls, the sharp crack of ice shifting in a glacier, the low, melodic whistle of the wind through a narrow pass, the touch, the rough, biting texture of a wool tunic, the surprising warmth of a sun-heated rock against your back during a midday rest, the sting of sleet against your cheeks, the sight, the world in shades of slate, silver and brilliant, blinding white, punctuated by the deep, impossible blue of the thin sky. Now let the mountain paths dissolve. We drift downward, following the trickling snowmelt as it gathers into streams, and then into the wide, slow-moving veins of the earth, the great rivers. Here, the world is lush and heavy with moisture. The air is thick with the scent of silt, sweet reeds, and the loamy fragrance of tilled soil. The rivers are the great highways of the ancient world, bringing not just water, but life, stories, and people from far-off lands, in a village perched on the fertile banks of a winding river. The rhythm of life is horizontal and fluid. The people here are master navigators and farmers. Their skin reflects a different geographical reality. In these humid, often overcast valleys, the sun is frequently veiled by mist. To thrive here, the human body adapted once more. Among the river folk, we see a softening of the skin's toner transition to shades of warm almond and pale gold. This lighter skin acts as a more sensitive net, designed to catch the soft, diffused light that filters through the river fogs, ensuring the body produces enough vitamin D to keep the bones strong for the heavy work of the harvest. Daily, life is a sensory immersion in the element of water. The sound, the rhythmic lap-lap of waves against the wooden hulls of fishing boats, the chorus of frogs at twilight, the soft, squelching sound of bare feet in the fertile mud, the taste, the sweetness of river fish roasted over a fire of driftwood, the cool mineral-rich taste of water drawn from a deep well, the earthy crunch of a fresh tuber, the feeling, the humidity that clings to your skin like a damp silk veil, the relief of wading into a cool current after a day in the fields, the steady, predictable pulse of the tides. As the river flows, so to do the people. Trade boats bring travelers from the mountains and the seas. When they stay, they bring their mountain bronze or their sea salt heritage into the river valleys. This mixing is the heartbeat of human diversity, a constant blending of tones and traits, like colors swirling in a slow-moving current. Let the river carry us further, until the banks widen so far they vanish, and the water turns from fresh to salt. We have reached the great seether edge of the known world. For the coastal dwellers, geography is defined by the horizon. The sun here is a constant companion, reflecting off the vast, moving mirror of the ocean. The weather is a fickle deity, bringing sudden storms and long, salt-crusted calms. The people of the coast developed a skin that is a masterpiece of versatility, because they spend their days on the water. exposed to both direct and reflected sunlight. Their skin often possesses a golden quality, a mid-tone that can darken quickly in the bright summer months and lighten just as effectively when the winter mists roll in. Their diet, too, plays a role in their biology, because they eat the oily fish and nutrient-dense seaweed of the deep. They receive a steady supply of vitamin D from their food. This dietary abundance allowed their skin to remain a bit darker than their inland neighbors, even in northern latitudes. It is a beautiful example of how what we eat and where we stand work together to shape who we are. Imagine a family of coastal voyagers. The sound, the eternal, rhythmic sigh of the surf against the shore. The crying of gulls. The snapping of a linen sail as it catches a fresh breeze. The touch, the gritty texture of sand between your toes. The sticky, salt-heavy air that coats your hair. The smoothness of a polished seashell held in a child's hand. The scent, the sharp, bracing temps of ozone before a storm. The smell of drying kelp. The savory aroma of shellfish steaming on hot stones. Community life on the coast is built on the shared labor of the sea. They work in harmony with the lunar cycles, knowing that the moon moves the waters just as surely as the sun moves the shadows. They are a people of the transition, living between the solid earth and the fluid deep. Geography is the stage, but the weather is the play. Over the millennia, the climate of the earth has breathed in and out cycles of heat and cycles of ice that forced the human family to move, adapt, and transform. During the great warming periods, the forests expanded and the people moved deeper into the shade. In the dappled light of the great forests, skin tones softened further, becoming pale and translucent to capture the meager light that reached the forest floor. During the cooling periods, the ice pushed southward. The world became a place of brilliant, high contrast, light dazzling white snow and deep black shadows. Humans learned to sew complex garments, creating a microclimate of warmth around their bodies. This artificial skin allowed them to survive in places where their biological skin would have failed. This interaction between biology and technology is a cornerstone of our story. We didn't just wait for our skin to change. We used our minds to create the tools, the needles, the furs, the fires that allowed us to inhabit every geographical niche on the planet as you sink deeper into relaxation. Think of the millions of tiny, quiet choices that led to you. Every migration path followed by your ancestors, whether they crossed a mountain range, followed a river, or sailed a sea, left a mark on your genetic code. A mother in the mountains, choosing the warmest cave. A father on the river, teaching his son to read the ripples. A child on the coast, finding the first amber on the beach. They were all participating in the great adaptation. The diversity we see in our world today is not a sign of separation, but a map of our travels. It is the record of where we have been and how we survived. The pale skin of the north is a song of gratitude for the rare winter sun. The bronze skin of the mountains is a shield against the high altitude glare. The deep tones of the equator are a celebration of the sun's fierce, life-giving power. The golden hues of the coast are a reflection of the sea and the sky. We are a single family, dressed in 100 different shades, each one a perfect response to the geography of our home. The night is now at its deepest point. The world outside is silent. The geography of your own room familiar and safe. The story of our adaptation is far from over. As the climate continues to shift and our technology allows us to move even more freely across the globe, The mixing of our genes will create new and beautiful variations. We are becoming a truly global village, where the mountain, the river, and the sea all meet in the heart of every individual. The cultural developments that followed these physical changes, the rise of trade, the birth of language, the creation of art all grew from this basic need to survive and thrive in a diverse world. We are creatures of the earth, shaped by its features and moved by its winds. As you drift into a deep, dreamless sleep, carry with you the knowledge that you are a masterpiece of evolution. You are the result of tens of thousands of years of perfect adaptation. You are the child of the sun, the moon, and the moving earth. The fire has now settled into a deep, rhythmic glow, and the world outside is blanketed in a thick, velvety silence. As you pull the blankets closer, let your mind drift forward through the mists of time, leaving the ancient forests and the first hearths behind. We are entering a world of stone and timber, of bells tolling from high steeples, and of narrow, winding streets that hum with the life of 1,000. Stories, welcome to the heart of medieval Europe, a land where the geography of the earth has finally been matched by the geography of the community. Imagine a spring morning, in a small hamlet nestled in a valley of the Loire or the Rhine. The air is cool and damp, carrying the scent of blooming hawthorn and the sharp, earthy smell of wood smoke, as the first light of dawn pale, pearlescent grate touches the thatched roofs. The village begins to stir. You can hear the rhythmic clink-clink of a blacksmith's early fire and the soft, distant lowing of cattle being led to the common pasture. A young woman named Elena steps out from her timber-framed cottage. Her skin is fair, the color of fresh cream, a biological legacy perfected over thousands of years to harvest the meager northern light. She wraps a heavy wool shawl around her shoulders. The texture is rough and honest, smelling of the lanolin of the sheep and the rosemary she tucked into her chest of clothes. The daily routine here is a slow, steady dance. Alina walks toward the village well, her wooden clogs making a rhythmic tap-tap on the packed earth. She greets her neighbors with a soft, neighbor-shared understanding of the labor ahead. There is the baker, his arms dusted with white flour, the scent of rising yeast following him like a cloud. There is the weaver, her fingers nimble and stained with the blue of the woad plant. Now, let the village path lead you toward the gates of a nearby market town. As you pass through the heavy stone archway, the world changes. The soft earth gives way to the hard, uneven texture of cobblestones. The town is a sensory feast, the sound, the cacophony of voices, merchants crying their wares, the squawking of geese in wicker crates, the chime of the cathedral clock marking the hours, and the rhythmic hammer of the stonemasons working on the new chapel. The smell, a complex tapestry of aromas, the sweet, spiced scent of cinnamon and cloves from a merchant stall, the pungent, salty air near the fishmonger, the heavenly fragrance of meat roasting on a spit in a tavern kitchen, the touch, the feel of different fabrics as you pass through the stalls, the cool, smooth surface of imported silk from the east, the heavy, protective weight of boiled leather, the gritty texture of sun-dried grain in a burlap sack. In the center of the town square, people from all walks of life mingle. Here, the long history of human migration is on full display, though the people of the Middle Ages did not yet have the words to describe it. As we do, you see the fair-skinned peasants of the north, their complexions pale from winters spent indoors. You see the traveling merchants from the Mediterranean, their skin a deep, sun-drenched olive, reflecting a heritage of coastal light and maritime trade. You see the golden-hued arches from the eastern steppes. They are a living map of the Earth's latitudes, brought together by the magnetism of the market. High above the town, perched on a limestone crag, sits the castle. Its grey stone walls are cold and imposing, a silent sentinel over the valley. Inside the castle's great hall, life is governed by a different rhythm. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax candles and the musk of hunting hounds sleeping near the hearth. The sunlight filters through narrow leaded glass windows, casting long, geometric shadows across the rushes on the floor. For the nobility living within these walls, life was less about the labor of the field and more about the management of the land, because they spent much of their time within the stone embrace of the castle or under the shade of hunting canopies. A new cultural perception of skin began to emerge. In this era, a very pale complexion became a symbol of status. To be fair was to be someone who did not have to labor under the burning sun of the fields. It was a mark of the protected life. This was a shift in how humans viewed their own biology, not as a tool for survival, but as a mirror of their social standing. Alina, working in her garden, might have tanned to a warm gold by midsummer. To her, it was a sign of health and a successful harvest. To the lady of the castle, staying pale was an act of refinement. Yet, beneath these cultural veils, their bodies were doing the exact same work, managing melanin, synthesizing vitamin D, and protecting the internal harmony of the cells. As the sun dips below the horizon, the town and village return to the hearth. Inside Elena's cottage, the fire is the heart of the home. The evening meal is a quiet, sacred time. They share a thick pottage of peas, onions, and salted pork, served in wooden bowls that feel smooth and warm in the hand. The flickering firelight turns the room into a sanctuary of amber and gold. Elena's father tells stories of the old ones, the ancestors who, legend says, came from a land of eternal sun. He doesn't know about DNA or the Great Rift Valley, but he speaks of a blood memory that connects them to all people. We are like the trees, he whispers, his voice a low, soothing rasp. Our leaves change with the seasons, and our bark thickens in the cold. But our roots all drink from the same deep earth. In these quiet moments, the genetic adaptation of the human family continued its slow, silent journey. In the crowded towns, where people lived closer together than ever before, the immune system was being tested and refined. The diversity of the population was its strength. Those who carried different genetic legacies from different parts of the world brought with them different resistances, ensuring that the human thread would not be broken by the plagues or the famines that occasionally swept the land as the centuries of the Middle Ages unfolded. The movement of people through pilgrimage, through trade, and through the shifting borders of kingdoms further blended the European palette, the people of the mist from the north and the people of the sun from the south were no longer strangers. They were neighbors, spouses, and kin. Imagine a child born in a port city like Venice or her mother might have the fair skin and grey eyes of the Baltic, while her father carries the bronze skin and dark curls of the Levant. The child is a masterpiece of integration. Her skin is a soft, glowing honey, perfectly adapted for a life that moves between the shaded counting houses and the sunlit docks. This is the true story of human variation, not a series of categories, but a continuous, beautiful spectrum, like the colors of a stained glass window in a cathedral. Each pane is distinct, yet they all contribute to a single breathtaking light, As the Middle Ages began to transition into the era of discovery, the human mind began to turn its curiosity inward. The invention of the printing press meant that observations about the world and the people in it could be shared and debated. Early scholars began to notice the patterns we have explored, that people near the equator were darker and people near the poles were lighter. They began to wonder why. They were standing on the threshold of a new understanding, a transition from myth and social status to the beginning of science. They could not yet see the double helix of DNA, nor could they measure the exact levels of vitamin D in the blood, but they could feel the truth of our shared journey. They could see that the environment shaped the person, and the person, in turn, shaped the culture. The village is now asleep. The bells of the monastery have rung the final hour of the day, and the only sound is the rustle of the wind in the thatched eaves. The story of our skin is reaching its modern chapter. We have traveled from the first sparks of fire in Africa to the complex stone societies of medieval Europe. We have seen how our skin has been a shield, a sail, and a symbol. As you drift into a deep, peaceful sleep, know that you are the living end of this long, magnificent thread. You carry the resilience of the mountain dweller, the curiosity of the river trader, and the endurance of the farmer. Your skin, whatever its shade, is a testament to the thousands of ancestors who walked, sailed, and labored so that you could be here tonight. The world is changing. The narrow streets of the medieval town are opening up into the vast horizons of the modern age. We are about to discover that the world is much larger than we ever imagined and that the human family is more interconnected than we ever dared to hope. The lanterns in the study are burning low now, casting long amber shadows across rows of vellum and ink-stained wood. The air is still, smelling faintly of old paper, beeswax, and the distant, cool scent of a garden at rest. We have traveled through the sun-drenched plains of the deep past and the stone-paved streets of the Middle Years. Now, let us drift into a time of quiet wonder, the era when the human mind began to turn its gaze inward, asking a simple, profound question. Why are we the colors of the earth and the sky? Imagine a room in a quiet university town, perhaps in the late 17th or early 18th century. Outside the window, a soft rain is falling, a rhythmic tapping against the glass that sounds like the heartbeat of the world. Inside, a scholar sits at a heavy oak desk. His name is Thomas, and his skin is the pale, cool tone of the northern winter. Before him lie maps vast, hand-drawn charts of the known world. They are dotted with illustrations of elephants in the south and whales in the north. But Thomas is not looking at the animals. He is looking at the notes of travelers. He reads of people in the far-off Spice Islands with skin like dark mahogany, and of people in the frozen reaches of the east with skin like sun-bleached straw. Thomas feels a swell of curiosity, a gentle pull at his spirit. For centuries, people had simply accepted their appearance as a gift from the heavens or a mark of their station. But in this new age of observation, the why began to hum in the air. Thomas dips his quill into a well of dark ink. The scratch-scratch of the nib against the paper is the only sound in the room. He wonders, is it the heat of the sun that paints the skin? Or is there a secret hidden deep within the body, a treasure passed from mother to child? The journey toward understanding was not a sudden burst of light, but a slow, patient gathering of clues. It was a sensory exploration of the human form. The sight, early scientists began to look through the first, primitive microscopes. They saw that the skin was not a solid wall, but a landscape of layers, valleys, and ridges as complex as any mountain range. They noticed tiny grains of pigment, dark as charcoal, scattered like seeds in the deeper layers of the skin. The touch, they felt the difference in textures, how some skin thickened and darkened in response to the wind and sun, while other skin remained soft and light. They marveled at the resilience of the human cloak. The sound, this was an age of correspondence. The sound of wax seals snapping open, the rustle of letters carried across oceans by ship. In the land of the great river, one letter might say, "The people are the color of the deep earth," and they walk through the midday heat without tiring. Thomas and his peers were like children piecing together a vast, beautiful mosaic. They began to notice a pattern map of light. The closer one lived to the center of the world, where the sun stands directly overhead, the deeper and richer the skin became. The further one traveled toward the poles, where the shadows are long and the light is thin, the more the skin faded to the color of the mist. As the decades drifted by, the language of science grew more refined. The dark seeds seen under the microscope were given a name. Melanin. Imagine a young researcher, perhaps a century after Thomas, sitting in a garden dappled with sunlight. She watches how the leaves of a tree turn toward the light to drink, and she realizes that our skin does the same. Melanin, she discovers, is not just a color. It is a guardian. It is a biological umbrella, unfolding within our cells to shield our very essence from the sun's fierce radiation. She reflects on the ancestors we met at the beginning of our story, the people of the African savanna. She understands now that their deep, dark skin was a masterpiece of protection. It allowed them to thrive where the sun was strongest. And she looks at her own pale hands, realizing that in the north, the body had to set down its umbrella to let the rare, precious light in. This wasn't a story of better or worse. It was a story of balance. It was the body's way of making sure it had enough light to build strong bones, the vitamin D we spoke of, while keeping enough shade to protect its inner mysteries. The story grows even more intimate. As we move toward the modern age, we enter the world of the invisible, the realm of genetics. Think of a quiet laboratory in the early 20th century. The air is sterile and cool, but the excitement is palpable. Scientists are beginning to decode a new language, a script written in the spiral of a molecule called DNA. They discover that every person on Earth carries a library within them, a collection of books passed down through thousands of generations. In one chapter of this library, there are instructions for how much melanin the skin should produce. The most beautiful discovery, however, was not how we are different, but how we are the same. When the scientists looked at the libraries of people from every corner of the globe, from the high Andes to the Australian outback, from the fjords of Norway to the forests of the Congo, they found that we share 99.9% of our story. The variations in our skin, the shades of our eyes, the texture of our hair, these are just the illustrations on the cover of the book. The story inside is identical. It is a story of a single family that wandered across a vast planet and learnt to wear the colors of their new homes. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, consider the weight of this knowledge. For thousands of years, we saw only the surface. We let the shades of our skin create walls between us. But the slow, gentle work of science has pulled those walls down. It has shown us that our diversity is a living record of our ancestors' courage. The deep mahogany of the South is a record of people who mastered the heat. The ivory and rose of the North is a record of people who mastered the cold. The gold and bronze of the crossroads are records of the travelers and traders who brought the world together. Every time you look at your own skin, you are looking at a letter from your ancestors. They are telling you, we survived. We changed. We made a home for you in this world. The quiet conclusion of the dapper lanterns in the study have finally flickered out. The scholar has set down his quill, and the researcher has closed her books. The world is asleep now, held in the quiet embrace of the night. We have come almost to the end of our journey. We have seen the biological artistry of melanin, the environmental pressure of the sun and the deep, shared code of our DNA. We have replaced mystery with understanding, and fear with wonder in this peaceful stillness. You can feel the interconnectedness of all things. You are part of a lineage that stretches back to the very first sunrise. You carry within you the light of the stars and the shadow of the earth. The full picture is almost complete. We have seen the history, the migration, the culture, and the science. Only one small part remains: the reflection on what this means for us now, in the present, as we look toward the future together. As your breath slows and your eyelids grow heavy, let the knowledge of your own resilience wash over you. You are a masterpiece of time. You are a child of the light. The fire in our hearth has finally softened into a deep, slumbering pulse of crimson and gold. The room is quiet, wrapped in the protective velvet of the night. Outside, the same moon that guided the first wanderers out of the great Rift Valley hangs in a sky of infinite depth, watching over us just as it watched over the hunters, the farmers, and the scholars of our long, shared past. We have traveled tens of thousands of years in the span of these few hours. We have felt the heat of the equatorial sun and the sting of the northern frost. Now, as you drift toward the gentle edge of sleep, let us pull the threads of this great tapestry together. Let us see the whole picture, the magnificent, shimmering map of human adaptation that you carry in your very cells. Everything began with the sun. In the beginning, we were children of the light, our skin dark and rich as the earth itself. That deep ebony and mahogany was a gift, a shield of melanin that allowed our ancestors to thrive under a fierce, vertical sun. It was the perfect armor, protecting the delicate nutrients of the body while the first humans ran through the tall, amber grasses of Africa. Imagine those early parents, their skin glistening like polished stone as they shared the bounty of the day. They were perfectly in tune with their world. But curiosity is a powerful force, and slowly, over thousands of years, the human family began to walk. They followed the rivers. They traced the coastlines. They crossed the land bridges that appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the mist. As they moved north, the sun began to change. It sat lower in the sky. It hid behind heavy grey clouds. It vanished for months at a time. And here, the body began its silent, brilliant transformation. The dark shield that had protected them in the south became too thick for the north. To keep the bones strong and the spirit resilient, the body had to let the light in. Slowly, generation by generation, the umbrellas of melanin were set down. The skin became a pale sail, catching every stray beam of light to create the vitamin D needed for survival. This wasn't a loss. It was a conversation. It was the body saying to the earth, "I see your new light, and I will change to meet it." As the hunters became farmers, the story took another turn. We moved from the wild, oily fish of the rivers and the nutrient-rich game of the forests to the golden fields of grain, in the sun-drenched valleys of the south and the misty plains of the north. What we ate began to shape who we were. Those who lived by the sea, eating the gifts of the deep, could afford to keep a darker hue even in the cool latitudes. But for the inland farmers, whose bread lacked the sunshine vitamins of the fish, the skin had to lighten even further. Think of the first harvest festivals, the smell of baking bread, the sweet tang of fermented honey, the laughter of children playing in the stubble of the wheat fields. In those moments, the biology of the people was shifting. The palette of human skin was expanding into 1,000 different shades: bronze, gold, peach, olive, and ivory. This diversity was never a wall. It was a bridge. As trade routes opened like veins across the continents, these different shades began to meet. The trader from the Silk Road, the sailor from the Mediterranean, the herder from the steppes, they met in the markets. They shared meals, they fell in love. Their children became beautiful blends of these histories, carrying the resilience of the North and the warmth of the South in a single embrace. As you settle deeper into your pillows, listen to the echoes of that survival. The sound, it is in the rhythmic thump of the loom, the clink of the blacksmith's hammer, and the low, soothing hum of a mother's lullaby passed down through 100 generations. The touch, it is in the feel of the fabrics we created, the scratchy wool, the smooth linen. The soft feech won a layer of protection that allowed us to inhabit every corner of this planet. The smell, it is the scent of wood smoke that has lingered in our clothing for 10,000 years. The smell of the rain on dry earth, and the fragrance of the hearth that signifies home. We are a species of survivors. We didn't just endure the ice ages and the droughts. We danced through them. We adapted our tools, our cultures, and our very skin to ensure that the story would continue. In the quiet of this night, we reflect on the science that finally revealed our truth. For so long, we looked only at the surface. We saw the different colors and thought they made us different people, but the scholars and the researchers, with their microscopes and their maps, found a deeper reality. They found that melanin is a guardian, not a divider. They found that our DNA is a shared library, and that the instructions for the color of our skin are just a few pages in a massive, beautiful book that we all read together. We know now that there is no pure lineage, only a magnificent, tangled web of connection. You carry the dust of the savannah, the mist of the highlands, and the salt of the sea in your blood. Your skin is a living record of the sun's journey across the earth. It is a masterpiece of evolution, a finely tuned instrument that has been calibrated by the wind, the water, and the light of 1,000,000 dawns. Imagine a great circle of people, all the ancestors we have met on this journey. The dark-skinned hunters of the Rift Valley, the bronze-skinned builders of the first cities, the pale-skinned farmers of the north, the olive-skinned voyagers of the sea. They are all standing together, their hands joined. They are looking at you with a sense of profound pride. They endured the cold so you could be warm. They followed the stars so you could find your way. They changed their very appearance so you could thrive in the world you inhabit today. There is a deep, settling calm in this realization. You are not a solitary traveler. You are part of a continuous, unbroken line of life that has spanned the globe. Every shade of skin you see in the world is a reason to celebrate, for it is proof of our family's incredible ability to survive. The diversity of the human race is like a garden in the moonlight, different shapes, different heights, different colors, all drinking from the same earth, all reaching for the same sky. The fire has now faded to a soft, glowing ember. The room is dark, but it is a warm, friendly darkness. The long story of human skin adaptation is complete. We have seen the why and the how. We have felt the textures of the past and the curiosity of the present. We have moved from the burning sun to the cool shadow, and back again. As you drift into the final stages of sleep, let the weight of this history hold you steady. You don't need to do anything more. Your body knows how to breathe. Your heart knows how to beat. Your skin knows how to protect you. You are a biological marvel, a cultural treasure, and a beloved child of the earth. The mountains are in your bones. The rivers are in your blood. The sun is in your skin. The stars are in your dreams. The journey is over for today. The world is at rest. You are connected to everyone who has ever lived, and everyone who will ever come after. You are part of the long, beautiful, and ever-changing human story. The light of the moon is soft on your face. The blankets are warm. The silence is a gift. Sleep now. Sleep with the knowledge that you are exactly as you should be. You are a masterpiece of time and light. You are home.